Now let's check in with meteorologist Mike Seidel. He joins us now from Redlands, California. Mike, how are you doing and how is everything going there for you?
Well, things are great for us. Much better day today, Jen. We've got sunshine, temperatures back in the 80s. Behind me is where we had the issues. In fact, most of the issues here in Southern California were in mountainous areas or below on the hillsides. You're looking at the San Bernardino Mountains, and that's Highlands. That's the town over there on the left at the foot of the mountains. We went up there today to about 4,500 feet to the town of Oak Glen, and this is some of the video from the mudslide and debris flows that rolled through there late yesterday afternoon. It was a quick hitter, 5 to 7 inches of rain, and that came roaring down, and it went into that under the road there, the Oak Glen Road, but it got caught. The boulders got caught. The water went over the roadway, took out the barrier, and went into a former restaurant and gift shop. And we talked to Kyle McLaughlin, one of the family members that owns that building.
I think everybody can see how devastating this is. Coming through the back where the pie shop used to be. My grandfather's desk, that was the only thing that he left my dad. And I was hoping that it was going to be here, but it's all the way at the bottom of the orchard now.
What way did the tree come in, do you think? Through the back here?
Yeah, they had to punch through the back hole.
My gosh. So, a lot of cleanup.
For sure. There's big boulders like the one behind you. But yeah, this has got to be, I don't know, 3 foot of mud.
The mud was like stepping in quicksand. It was just a real mess up there. They got the road open early this morning with big bulldozers and heavy equipment. The building's a total loss. It hasn't been used for quite some time, but unfortunately, they don't have any insurance. The issue right now is we've got 700 residents sheltering in place up above that at 6,000 feet in Forest Falls, and that is going to be an issue for a while until they get that road open. Last check with Public Works in San Bernardino County is that the road is still blocked by a huge mudslide last night. We saw that on video, Jen, and that's why we weren't up there broadcasting. It was way, way too dangerous. That's why we stayed down here at the lower elevations, and we just had some rain and wind gusts to 40 miles an hour.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for that report. And now we head to meteorologist Mike Seidel, who joins us now from Redlands, California. And Mike, can you tell us about some of the worst damage that you've seen and also how long it's going to recover from that damage?
Will do, Jen. First off, we have returned to the California sunshine we often talk about, and the vista is behind me. These are the San Bernardino Mountains. It doesn't get any prettier than this. The day after a tropical storm, of all things, rolled through the Southland and Southern California. And we went up into the mountains earlier today because of the impacts. There are really no impacts down here in these foothills across the Inland Empire. It's all up there. And we went up to Oak Glen earlier. There's also issues up at Forest Falls, and this is Oak Glen, and this is the big bulldozer that was working on the turn there, the bend. There was a big flash flood there. What happened is the water got channeled because of the culvert getting blocked by boulders and debris. It went over the roadway. It knocked the perimeter, the protective barrier, down the creek, and it just made a mess of the whole area. By the time we got there, as you can see, they were able to clean up the mud and the debris. And we talked to San Bernardino Fire Department information officers about what they dealt with and what's ahead for the area.
So as the remnants of Hurricane Hilary came through San Bernardino County, it cut a large swath of damage. The focus of that damage right now appears to be on the eastern side of the San Bernardino Mountains, where we see here the communities of Oak Glen, Forest Falls, and Angeles Oaks. To that point, we had a significant mud flow in the community of Forest Falls. That has cut off Valley of the Falls Drive, leading to 700 residents sheltering in place above that mud and debris flow.
How long do you think it'll be before you get that open?
Fortunately, this is not an uncommon occurrence in Forest Falls. County Roads is working diligently with their heavy equipment to remove all of that debris. At that point, they'll be able to assess the road surface and determine any repairs that need to be made. However, we do not have a timeline at this point.
And at this point this afternoon here on the West Coast, that road is still closed. So we've got about 700 residents that are sheltered in place. Everybody's okay. In fact, as far as we know, not one person was injured from the flash flood, mudslide, debris flow situation up there in those beautiful mountains. You know, Jen, in the fall and winter and spring, those are covered with snow. You can go up to Lake Arrowhead, up to Big Bear Lake, and do some skiing. We know what happened last December with feet of snow up there at Big Bear in December.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine how beautiful it is. But the great news is that not even one person was injured, Mike. Like, that's fantastic to hear. So, and hopefully recovery efforts will be quick and smooth. So thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate it. And now let's check in with meteorologist Mike Seidel, who joins us now from Redlands, California. Mike, how's it going out there?
Oh, good afternoon. We're back to the California sunshine we know and love, and there is no chance of rain for the foreseeable future. It's highly unusual to get rain in August, but yesterday up in the mountains behind me, the San Bernardinos, we had as much as a foot of rain, and you can see here what it looked like on the ground. We were up there about lunchtime. They had just bulldozed the road open, and we were able to see the damage and destruction. We also talked to Kyle McLaughlin, the family that owns this building, this property, a former restaurant and gift shop, and gave us his thoughts as he surveyed the damage.
I wasn't here when it happened, but by the looks of it, the water rushed over the road, took down the K-roll, and I'm guessing a tree punched a hole in the side of the building, and the water made its way from there.
This is the worst you've seen here?
Absolutely.
You know how long the restaurant's been here?
The restaurant's been here for a long time. It used to be a restaurant gift shop, and then my dad bought it when we were young kids. We re-roofed it, and you know, we'd spend our summers up here working on it and working on the orchards and stuff
like that. A lot of memories?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And what's the status now?
I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do with this. You got 5 foot of mud, 6 foot of mud on that backside. There's a 20-foot tall tree inside the building. Boulders 4 foot wide. I don't know what they're gonna do with it.
Well, it's tough to see that. Mud everywhere up there. By the way, you mentioned Inyo County, Jennifer. That's the home of Death Valley National Park. It was closed yesterday at 2, is not reopened. The Park Service does not know when it will reopen. They set their all-time daily rainfall record, all-time on record, 2.20 inches. And remember, it was just last year they had a flash flood that damaged a lot of the roads there in the park.
Just absolutely incredible. Thank you, Mike, so much for that report.
Meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Redlands, just outside of San Bernardino. And Mike, you said you were up in the mountains to see some of the damage. What did you see?
We saw a lot of mud, a lot of debris, and we went right up in the mountains. What a beautiful picture here. The sun is back out in sunny Southern California. It hardly ever rains in August. And yesterday we had daily records, Palm Springs, those areas. And how about Death Valley? Wettest day on record. The park is still closed. National Park Service doesn't know when it will open. They have more damaged roads. So we went up into the mountains up to Oak Glen, 4,500 feet up. And I want to show you what happened late yesterday afternoon. This is when we had the flood, the flash flood. We had 5 to 7 inches of rain up in those mountains. Those mountains go up to over 11,000 feet. And you can see the power of the water that came down and took out this bridge over the creek. It, well, took out part of the road. We were able to get across it. One lane was left. But engineers have to come back out there and take a look and maybe shore it up, or I don't know if they're going to have to rebuild it. We still have some issues up in Forest Falls. 700 residents have sheltered in place because the road there is still blocked by mud and debris. Don't know when that's going to open, hopefully very soon. And we talked earlier to the San Bernardino gang out there, the Public Works gang, working on getting roads open after a very tough day yesterday.
So as the remnants of Hurricane Hilary came through San Bernardino County, it cut a large swath of damage. The focus of that damage right now appears to be on the eastern side of the San Bernardino Mountains, where we see here the communities of Oak Glen, Forest Falls, and the Angeles Oaks. To that point, we had a significant mud flow in the community of Forest Falls. That has cut off Valley of the Falls Drive, leading to 700 residents sheltering in place above that mud and debris flow.
How long do you think it'll be before you get that open?
Fortunately, this is not an uncommon occurrence in Forest Falls. County Roads is working diligently with their heavy equipment to remove all of that debris. At that point, they'll be able to assess the road surface and determine any repairs that need to be made. However, we do not have a timeline at this point.
And there you go. No timeline at this point. It's a real mess up there. They had issues last September with Kay. Mudslides up there and over across the area above here where we're standing in the San Bernardino kind of foothills in the county here, they had mudslides and one fatality. Fortunately, no reports of any fatalities anywhere across Southern California. So once again, it's all about the mountains and the heavy rain coming down those hillsides into these locations down here. But again, it was about 3,000 up to about 6,000 feet, Jackie, where we have the issues at least here. And most of the issue is caused by that burn scar from the El Dorado fire, which hit, it'll be 3 years ago in November. You could see the hillside that had been denuded up there.
We remember that one for sure, and those burn scars can cause problems years after the fact. Thanks so much, meteorologist Mike Seidel, reporting live for us in Redlands.
And let's check back in with meteorologist Mike Seidel. He's live in Redlands, just outside of San Bernardino tonight. And, you know, Mike, this was, you know, quite a storm. I mean, just something so incredibly unusual for this time of the year. And those deserts getting hit hard, the mountains getting hit very hard, mostly outside of the major metros, though, but certainly there's been a lot of problems.
Yeah, primarily in those high deserts, also out in Palm Springs, and then areas near the mountains where we have those steep hillsides, like these mountains behind me, the beautiful San Bernardinos going up to 11,500 feet. That's not chump change right there, and you've got steep hillsides, as you can see, on this beautiful sunny 82-degree late afternoon here in San Bernardino County. We're out here in Redlands. We went up there today to see what kind of damage there was, because they got hit hard last year, but locals telling us this was worse than last September with the remnants of Tropical Storm K. Believe it or not, we had upwards of 7 inches of rain up there on the higher peaks, and it all ran down through the Santa Ana River. You can see the mud and debris on the roadway and around this building. This was a former restaurant and card shop, gift shop. It hasn't been open for many years, but we talked to the owner and the family, Kyle McLaughlin, earlier today to get his thoughts on, you know, how he felt about coming over and seeing this after the flash flood last night.
The ravine sits right over here and behind us. The culvert on the other side of the road is typically what happened last time, was that it got plugged and it crossed over the top of the road and it ends up on our property instead of back into the culvert. You know, the last time it happened, it got this right-hand side right down the side of the culvert and buried it in some mud and some rocks, and it looks like this time it decided to make its way through the building.
Just imagine the force of the water.
For sure.
To do this.
There was definitely no stopping it.
Bringing the highway barriers down the hill into the mud.
Yeah, the K-rail's 30 foot on the other side of the building.
Yeah, he mentioned the blockage in the culvert, and that forced the water up over the road. They got that cleared this morning. Still have problems up there in the Forest Falls area. No update as of this point, but as of mid-afternoon, 700 residents there. That's up above Oak Glen. That's up about 6,000 feet. Oak Glen is about 4,500 feet in the mountains. And that main road into that area is closed because of the debris flow mudslide. A big one. We saw that on the video. And they got hit last year, Carl. And so they're sheltering in place. They're fine. They just can't get in and out at this point. They should, I would imagine they'll have that open in the next 24 hours. But one of the records that fell, the rainiest day on record in the history of Death Valley, or at least on record, they had 2.20 inches, and damage to the park. It's still closed, and they don't know when they are going to reopen it. Remember, just last year, they had a big flash flood. They had, about 2 inches of rain in a few hours. So Death Valley National Park hit twice in 2 years by a tropical system, which is almost unheard of to get that. And by the way, yesterday we had that 5.1 earthquake in Ojai. So what are the odds of an earthquake and a tropical storm in Southern California on the same day? Pretty darn low, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting topic, Mike. A lot of geologists and meteorologists discussing that. There has been some research on that, but I won't get into that right now.
Yesterday was a dangerous day, and this is one of the reasons. Heavy rainfall, upwards of a foot in the mountains behind me. But look at this mud and debris flow coming out of the mountains here in San Bernardino County. This is why we tell folks to stay off the roadways in a situation like this, because you just never know when this is going to happen, and they come up very quickly, and they can take you down the road. It's like a flash flood with, it's like a solid wall of mud. We've seen these time and time again in the desert locations. And that was one of many we saw yesterday out here in the foothills in San Bernardino County. We have many issues in the deserts, Palm Springs, with their rainiest August day on record. They had over 3 inches of rain, more than half their annual rainfall, and they're still cleaning up out there. That's about 40 miles to our east and southeast. Back here in Redlands, near San Bernardino, the sun coming down on a beautiful August day here in Southern California. A whole different animal than yesterday, where we had this tropical storm and we had rain. In many places had never seen rain on the 20th of August, because basically the rainy season here is October to March, and you can go days and days, several months or more, without a drop of rain here. So we did get some rain, and that'll green up some of the vegetation, at least briefly. They are the mountains I'm talking about, and we went up there earlier today and saw what was going on with the mudslides, the debris flows, the cleanup with the bulldozers, trying to open up those roads around Oak Glen. The Potato Canyon Road was closed, and still can't get in and out of the area up there. What's the name of the town? Escapes me. Falls. Forest Falls. Yes, the trees. Forest Falls. 700 folks are up there. They're okay. They're just in place because the road is still closed. Meanwhile, we have a great evening here, Jackie. More typical Southern California weather. The rain is out of here, and it may not rain here for another 3 months. It's not out of the question, because yesterday was just a huge anomaly in weather here in this part of the world with this Mediterranean climate.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how it plays with the fire season as well. If we get a little growth from that and then things dry out for another couple of months, we get some Santa Ana kicking in. Now, an update on the damage and recovery efforts that remain underway. Meteorologist Mike Seidel just outside of San Bernardino with the latest. Mike, I know you're in a safe place now, but you saw some pretty bad damage earlier today.
Yes, and that's why we weren't up there live last night, because we knew it was going to be very dangerous. It turned out as expected, even worse than last September with the rainfall from Kay. That's what the locals are telling us. We were right up there, northeast of there, just past that kite, up in the San Bernardino Mountains, and the highest peak back there is 11,500 feet and change. So very, very high mountains, and you can see what happened in Oak Glen. This is late yesterday afternoon as the rain came down, those mountainsides and hillsides, 5 to 7 inches of rain up above Oak Glen, which is at 4,500 feet. And look at the force of the water, and not only water, but mud and rocks and boulders coming down. We had that boulder. Still, we got I-8 shut down well east of San Diego, and it's the old interval traffic rules. You know, they stop one way and then you go. It's a long delay there. So we've had all kinds of issues up there. And earlier we talked to the fire department, the PIO there, about what went on and what they're doing to get things back to normal up there in Oak Glen.
So again, with this wide footprint further up the mountain in the community of Angeles Oaks, we have Camp Seven Oaks. In that place, the Santa Ana River overflowed its banks. It sounds like we did have some structure damage, and to that point, we have 20 to 30 individuals that continue to shelter in place. Swift water rescue teams are there attempting to make contact with those personnel. They've determined from the amount of flow, and we still have rising floodwaters in that area, it is still too hazardous to remove those people through those floodwaters. To that point, we're going to continue to observe those people, keep them in a safe spot, and only when it's safe to bring them across will we effect those rescues.
And they just tweeted and mentioned that the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department sent out their aviation unit, meaning a helicopter, earlier today to help with the situation. As he mentioned, and what we just saw on Twitter, 30 folks are still up there sheltering in place. We've got 700 below that town in the Forest Falls area. And one individual up in the Seven Oaks area is now unaccounted for. So we're not sure if that person, many times a lot of these people leave town and don't tell their next of kin, and they're okay. So right now they're just saying one person is unaccounted for up in Seven Oaks, Jackie. Beautiful day, back to the typical Southern California weather, and we'll be back into the 90s in many of these areas, Riverside through the Inland Empire, and the deserts back in the triple digits as we get in through the next couple of days. What a break yesterday from the heat. Many areas getting record low maxes. Palm Springs only 79 yesterday. Only way you can do that is with a tropical system for the most part.
Yep, back to hot and dry coming up real soon, real fast here, Mike. Thanks so much for that live report.
And we want to check back in with meteorologist Mike Seidel. He is live in Redlands, just outside of San Bernardino tonight. Mike, I wanted to return to something that you mentioned last hour, and that was the, sort of amazing juxtaposition of a tropical storm and an earthquake at the same time. And it's interesting because, there were several geologists who came out and said there is absolutely no relationship between those two things, but there actually has been some research connecting heavier rain to changes in weight loads and groundwater and, perhaps leading to more seismicity, maybe not immediately, but eventually. So it is a really interesting question.
It is, and it's way above my pay grade at this point, Carl. You've read more into it than I have. But I can understand the situation and explaining how you get more weight and it impacts the fault lines across the world and out here in Southern California. I felt it rolling through here, and I'm not close to Ojai, but it was 5.1, which is considered a moderate earthquake. Moving on, though, we were up in the mountains today, up in the beautiful San Bernardinos, way back there, San Giorgio Peak, over 11,000 feet. And we went up to Oak Glen, and this is what we found. Yes, the day after Hilary dropping 5 to 7 inches of rain, the mudslide, the debris flows, cutting off that town for a while on both ends. But again, by the time we got up there, it was around 11 o'clock or noon. Everything was back open at that point, but we unfortunately had to deal with devastation. Kyle McLaughlin, his family owns this building that has been around for years. It hasn't been open. It was a former restaurant kind of gift shop. It's not been open for many, many years, and it really got hit hard. We got his thoughts on the damage from Hilary.
I think everybody can see how devastating this is. Coming through the back where the pie shop used to be. My grandfather's desk, that was the only thing that he left my dad. And I was hoping that it was going to be here, but it's all the way at the bottom of the orchard now.
What way did the tree come in, do you think? Through the back here?
Yeah, it had to punch through the back hole.
My gosh. A lot of cleanup.
For sure. There's big boulders like the one behind you. But yeah, this has got to be, I don't know, 3 foot of mud.
Yeah, what a mess, and just mud everywhere, and you try to walk in it, it's like quicksand. And that was fortunately one of the few properties that got hit directly by a mudslide. They were very fortunate across the area. We didn't read or see many homes, and we in fact saw one other property going up and coming down that was hit hard by the mudslide and the debris. So that's the issue when you have a lot of rain on elevated surfaces and gravity takes over, especially out here where you have very steep hillsides, and they are below the burn scar from the El Dorado fire, which occurred. It'll be 3 years in November, Carl. So those burn scar areas always susceptible to additional movement of the side of the mountain or hill because they don't have vegetation holding it in. It'll be interesting, Jackie mentioned earlier, what happens now. We've had all the rain, vegetation greens up, and then we go into the Santa Ana fire season in September and October. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed, the fire season is nil this year.
Keep an eye on it, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll certainly hope so, Mike. Thank you so much. And
Want to update you now on the damage and recovery efforts in California. The sun has set there. Meteorologist Mike Seidel in Redlands. But boy, you saw quite a bit of damage earlier today here, Mike.
Yes, we did. We went up there about noon local time. We knew we were going to find issues. We saw that online, and we were thinking it was going to happen because of what happened here last year with Kay, and this ended up being worse than Kay based on the locals, more rainfall, more impacts. And we went up into the San Bernardinos. You can still kind of see them tonight as we lose the last glimmer of light from what was a beautiful sunny Monday here in Southern California. And this is what happened yesterday. This is late afternoon when you get 5 to 7 inches of rain coming down these very steep hillsides below the burn scar, the El Dorado burn scar. And look at the power of the water. Not only water, but mud and debris, rocks and boulders. Had a big boulder out on I-80s to San Diego, shutting down, I think, the eastbound lanes. They're letting cars go back and forth, but that was very very impressive. And then up there, too, just the power of the water and the rainfall getting together and causing the flash flood and the whole area, that road getting cut off in two locations. We talked to the PIO from the San Bernardino Fire Department, County Fire Department, and got his assessment on what happened and what's ahead.
So again, with this wide footprint further up the mountain in the community of Angeles Oaks, we have Camp Seven Oaks. In that place, the Santa Ana River overflowed its banks. It sounds like we did have some structure damage, and to that point, we have 20 to 30 individuals that continue to shelter in place. Swift water rescue teams are there attempting to make contact with those personnel. They've determined from the amount of flow, and we still have rising floodwaters in that area, it is still too hazardous to remove those people through those floodwaters. To that point, we're going to continue to observe those people, keep them in a safe spot, and only when it's safe to bring them across will we effect those rescues.
And also below that town, a little lower elevation, I should say a little higher elevation, 6,000 feet as Forest Falls, and there's about 700 residents in the same situation. They're cut off not by the Santa Ana River, but by a mudslide across the road there. And as of about an hour or so ago, as far as we know, they haven't gotten the road open, but they're all safe and they'll get out of there. One person is unaccounted for up in Seven Oaks, so hopefully that person is left town ahead of the storm and is with, friends or family. Tonight, though, a beautiful evening, Jackie. Temperatures will be back in the 60s, and then we get back to more typical weather the rest of the week, the rest of August, into September. I mean, theoretically, it may not rain again here for several months. But as you mentioned earlier, very importantly, the rain will cause the vegetation to blossom, and then we get into the fire season in September and October with the Santa Ana winds, and hopefully it is not going to be a bad fire season. Let's hope for no fires at all, but that's hard to do, but we'll see how it all turns out. So far, we haven't had much of a fire season in California, and that was helpful because of last year's heavy rainfall. And up here in these mountains, up at Big Bear, remember they had, 6, 7, 8 feet of snow. Folks were up there stranded for up to 2 weeks.
It has been a heck of a year for California, that is for sure. And odd to hear the gentleman there talking about the Santa Ana River overflowing its banks. We're usually talking about Santa Ana winds.
And let's check back in with meteorologist Mike Seidel. He lives in Redlands, just outside of San Bernardino tonight. And Mike, a rather remarkable event. I mean, generally speaking, we don't get tropical cyclones coming up into Southern California because the water is so cold off the coast. But when they start out real strong, as this one did, they've got a shot at coming up and into that area.
And the steering was just perfect. And the good thing about the steering, it was so strong, Carl, remember last night it was moving about 30 miles an hour to the north. So it moved out very quickly. Had a bit of slower mover, we would have had even more rain and more issues. The locals up in the San Bernardino Mountains where we were in Oak Glen, those areas, told me it was worse than last year with Kay as far as what they experienced. We had 5 to 7 inches of rain up there in the mountains. Down here, we had generally about 3 inches of rain. It just, there's a wide swath of rainfall. Total Palm Springs had over 3, and they picked up more than half the rainfall. Let me take you up there. We went up there late this morning to take a look at what happened. They had gotten the road open, Oak Glen Road, coming out of the San Bernardino area. And we had a bulldozer in one area. We had heavy equipment down by the creek by that steakhouse. And they were trying to get things opened up. What happened is where we're going to talk to Kyle in just a minute, that area, the culvert got blocked by debris and boulders and rocks, and so the water was forced up and over the road, and it took out the guardrail. And you'll see here, as we talk to Kyle McLaughlin, what happened and what the future holds for that piece of property.
I wasn't here when it happened, but by the looks of it, the water rushed over the road, took down the K-roll. And I'm guessing a tree punched a hole in the side of the building, and the water made its way from there.
This is the worst you've seen here?
Absolutely.
You know how long the restaurant's been here? The
restaurant's been here for a long time. Used to be a restaurant gift shop, and then my dad bought it when we were young kids. We re-roofed it, and we'd spend our summers up here working on it and working on the orchards and stuff like that. A lot of memories? Oh yeah, for sure.
And what's the status now?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with this. You got 5 foot of mud, 6 foot of mud on that backside. There's a 20-foot tall tree inside the building. Boulders 4 foot wide. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
And he told us that his father had planned on selling the property and he was going to use that money to retire on. Now the property is basically a total loss, and it was unfortunately uninsured. So a very sad story there coming out of Oak Glen. Meanwhile, today the sun is back out. Things are getting back to normal. All the roads have been open except for areas above Oak Glen. Up in Forest Falls, Carl, 700 folks are stuck because the road is still shut down. They're okay. They just can't get out. Imagine if the exit to your subdivision was blocked. That's kind of what they're dealing with. They're okay, and I would assume they'll get that road open sometime tomorrow. Last check, it's still not open, and of course now it's dark and very perilous up there in these mountains after dark, even on a night like tonight where it's calm and clear, and there is no more rain from Hilary. But what a storm. The fact that it rained in August is very unusual. Many locations had never seen rain on the 20th of August. And that goes to what kind of climate they have out here, the Mediterranean climate, where they have a rainy season basically from October to March.
And just an exceedingly rare event. Mike, thank you for your reporting as always. We certainly do appreciate it.